Hi, this is Joe Chambers. Thanks for watching Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage. This week's show is with the great Robby Krieger of The Doors. When we were recently in Los Angeles, Robbie was kind enough to invite us to his studio at his home. Some tremendously historic guitars are going to be seen. It's a great interview. When we come back, Robby Krieger. Welcome back to Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage with Robby Krieger. Robbie, thank you so much for doing this.
All right,
we
man.
really appreciate it.
Thanks. Good to have you.
Thank you.
At my house.
Like I ask everybody, we want the show to be interesting to the general public, but we also kind of gear it toward musicians as well. And you were kind enough to do this on like a no notice, so appreciate it a lot. But
well, Steve Lukather calls and says, "Hey, man, I want you to help out my buddy." You know, I said, "I better do it."
Well, he's a great guy, and I've been wanting to do this for a long time.
I know, we talked a while ago about it.
Danny Seraphin introduced us, so everybody's going to want to know about your gear and everything. But first, how did you get started? What was what got you interested in being a musician?
Well, I think the first thing was my buddy. His name was Loring Hughes, and he played the bugle at school every morning. And so I said, "Wow, I want to do that. You know, I want to do that." So he said, "Well, you know, it's bugles is different because a trumpet has valves. You know, you got to first learn to play trumpet." So okay, so I took trumpet lessons. You know, and I must have been 10 years old or something. So that didn't last very long. I never got the gig at school. So I was kind of, you know, my mom always played music at home, Frank Sinatra, that kind of stuff. And then finally Elvis came out, and that turned a light bulb off on me. And but then my dad had these flamenco records, flamenco guitar. So I love that stuff, you know. So really my first guitar was a flamenco guitar. And I took lessons from really good guy, Peter Evans out here. And my friend and I, Billy Wolf, we kind of had, you know, contests. And so that was really the first kind of music I did was flamenco. And then from there I kind of went into folk music, you know, Bob Dylan, all that stuff, the Jug Band, Jim Kweskin and the Jug Band, and then got into blues. I was the president of the Little Richard fan club at my school, and you know, I love that kind of stuff. But for me, rock was, at that point, was kind of corny. You know, it was the early Beach Boys stuff and the early Beatles, and that really wasn't doing it much for me. And then until one day, I went and saw Chuck Berry. And this was at a blues festival. And it was Big Mama Thornton. It was the Chambers Brothers, who at that time were really a blues band. You know, they hadn't done any rock and roll yet. This was like 64 maybe, 63. And that just blew me away. And Chuck Berry, because this was before he kind of got pissed off and, you know, mad at the world, and started using pickup bands and stuff like that. So this is when he had Johnny Johnson, and he had the real guys. His bass player played with one hand. He didn't pick. He just boom, 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 boom. It's amazing, you know. And the next day, I went out and went to the pawn shop in Santa Monica called Ace Loans. That's where everybody used to get their guitars back then. And I wanted to get a 335 like Chuck Berry had, but they were too expensive. So I ended up with a Melody Maker. That was the cheapest red Gibson I could get. And that was a great guitar. I used it on the first two Doors albums.
Well, let me ask you, was that like a double cut Melody
Yeah,
Maker?
double cutaway. It looked just like my SG, except it had the crummy pickups.
Yeah, singles.
Which were not crummy. Single coil pickups, I should say. But they sound pretty good on those records. I wish I wish that guy hadn't stole it.
I do too.
You know, if whoever has my guitar, please call the Doors office in L.A. I'll pay you double.
You got the flamenco guitar, but how did you get that? And
Well, I talked my dad into buying it. It was actually really a good flamenco guitar. It was a Mexican guitar, but the guy who made it was related to Ramirez, who makes the really good flamenco guitars in Spain. And he knew what he was doing, man. It was for $150. It was really a good flamenco guitar.
that was a pretty good little chunk of money though at that time too.
Yeah. My dad stepped up, and because up until then I was kind of a loose cannon. I just wasn't interested in anything but getting in trouble. So my dad noticed that I was really into the music, and so he went and bought me that guitar.
How did you how were you able to afford your Melody Maker?
That one I traded in my flamenco guitar to get.
So that's what happened to the flamenco. Okay.
Yeah, but I did get a real Ramirez shortly after that. My dad had a business trip to Spain. I talked him into going to Ramirez's shop. I said, you know, please, for my birthday, or something, get me a flamenco guitar. And I still have that one. It's 1963.
That's great. What happened after? I mean, how did you?
Well, I had met John Densmore in high school as well. Before I went up to Menlo, I was at University High School here in L.A., and he was in the jazz band playing drums. And so we used to go out to the jazz clubs and sneak in and see, Roland Kirk, Miles Davis, all kinds of really cool jazz stuff. And, I couldn't play it, so I didn't even try, but I just really dug it, And so Densmore met Ray Manzarek, and he was the first one to be inducted into the Doors, and then John got me in afterwards.
So, unbelievably, I guess one of the greatest things that could have happened to you was learning flamenco guitar. I mean,
Definitely.
that gave you a whole different sound than anybody else.
Yeah, and I had to do the correct fingering, and so I really knew the classical positions and stuff, which a lot of rock guitars never did bother with. I'm not saying that gives you a different sound, but it does. It's a definite mood about it, about doing things.
You may be the first person that actually played electric rock flamenco guitar, really, do you think?
It could be.
Because some of your riffs were like so unique.
Well, yeah, and then we had Spanish Caravan, which was, I actually played that on a flamenco guitar, that intro, and then halfway during the song, then it goes to electric. But it's definitely inspired by flamenco.
So you had the Gibson Melody Maker. What amplifier did you have when you started?
My first amp was the Magnetone. Magnetone.
Yeah.
Had the two 12s, and it had a real good stereo effect. It was actually stereo. When the Doors started, I'd only been playing electric for maybe a year. maybe a little more. So I was kind of just finding my way, you know. And so playing with Ray and John, who, you know, they were both there. Ray had some classical in him and blues, and John was more jazz. So it was really, my style was really molded by playing with those guys.
What was it that made y'all decide not to get another bass player?
Well, we thought we would. I mean, we tried to get a bass player. You know, we tried a number of bass players, but Ray had this piano bass where he just play it with his left hand and play the organ with the right hand. So rather than have to pay another guy, you know, or split up the money, you know, that seemed to be working pretty good. And I'm glad we did that, because that really kind of helped our sound develop, because his left hand was kind of on automatic pilot, and it kind of made him play really monotonous bass lines, but weird bass lines that you wouldn't hear a regular bass player play, you know, so it sounded different. And like on the first album, we just used mostly the piano bass, and then I actually overdubbed a real bass on a couple of the songs, Soul Kitchen, Backdoor Man, a couple of those. And then we had this guy, Larry Knechtel, who was a really cool session guy. Is he in the Hall of Fame? He actually played bass on Light My Fire, and he just copied exactly what Ray. So if you really listen with the headphones, you can hear two basses on that song.
I had seen where Ray, in a documentary, had said that Larry had gone back, since he was a keyboard and a bass player, and would do that so you'd have an actual bass, string bass on your records.
Right.
But also, didn't you have Chef Jerry?
Yeah. After the first album, we always had a bass player. At first, it was a guy named Doug Blubon. He had a band on Elektra as well, and so he played on the next couple albums. Really great stuff, like Love Me Two Times, and you know, he was a really good bass player. He just passed recently. And then on the Morrison on the Soft Parade album, we had Harvey Brooks, who played with Bob Dylan and all that. And he was great. Boy, he came up with some cool stuff. Then there was a guy, Ray Neapolitan, who played on the next album, Morrison Hotel. And then on Roadhouse Blues, we had Lonnie Mack playing bass, which was really weird because he'd never played bass before, and he just happened to be there that night, and the other guy didn't show up, and that was kind of a weird story too, because Lonnie Mack had given up music. Can you believe that?
No.
Yeah, this was 68, 9, and he started selling Bibles out of the back of his car. That's what he was doing. So one of the guys that worked at the studio noticed him on the street selling Bibles. Lonnie, what you doing? You know, I said, I gave up music. Well, come on, man, we'll give you a job at the studio here, you know. And so he talked him into that. So he was just hanging around, not really playing anything. And we were doing Roadhouse Blues that night, and he said, hey, Lonnie, how about playing bass? And he played an amazing bass line, if you ever noticed.
No kidding.
Yeah, so the last one, which we haven't talked about, was L.A. Woman. And Bruce Botnick, who was our engineer, was actually going to produce this one, because Paul Rothchild, who'd done the one before, he was busy with Janis Joplin or something. So we just decided to produce it ourselves with Bruce. So Bruce had just been hanging with Elvis's guys, and Jerry Sheff was the bass player for Elvis. So we got Jerry, and boy, we're really glad we did. He just was great. You know, he came up with so much good stuff, especially on L.A. Woman.
Yeah.
You know, now on L.A. Woman, that was all his stuff. Like Riders on the Storm, that was Ray's bass line. Ray just going dum 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 dum. which a bass player would never play,
Right.
you know, but he played it, and it took him a while to figure out how to play it, you know. It's just repetitive, very boring kind of a line, but that's what made the Doors songs, you know, hypnotic.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It was you kind of got in a trance listening to it. It was great, you know.
Yeah, well, it's the feel. The feel was so in there, and you don't think about it, but that's what it was.
Did you find that the producers really had a big input on what you guys did in the studio, or did you guys kind of just do it yourself?
It was some of both, you know, like those first two albums, we really had all the songs, you know, been playing them for a year, you know, like places like the Whiskey and the Sea Witch and Beto Lido's, all those places in LA. So, you know, really all they had to do is turn on the tape recorders, pretty much. And the second album was got more involved because we had more time and money to spend on it. You know, the first record did it in 2 weeks because it was, you know, tight budget. But, you know, after Light My Fire hit, then we did the second album. Okay, take your time, you know. You can have a little more studio time.
I've heard a story, but would you tell how Light My Fire happened?
Well, that was actually the first song I wrote for the Doors, because up till then Jim was the writer, you know, and he had these amazing words and stuff, and, you know, we would put music to it. But at one point he said, "Hey man, we don't have enough originals, you know, why don't you guys write some?" So I said, "All right, I'll try it. Well, what should I write about?" And he said, "Something that won't be out of season, you know, next year. You know, write something that'll be forever." So I said, "Okay, I'll write about earth, air, fire, or water."
Whoa, that's incredible. And that was your first song you wrote?
Yeah, pretty much.
Kind of unreal.
Yeah, been all downhill ever since.
Well, Don't You Love Her Madly? I mean, gee whiz, that's a real song, though, right? I mean, that really happened.
Jerry Sheff did a great bass line on that too. He really did.
Is that true? How you wrote that song?
Yeah, that's my wife downstairs that I was talking about, how she used to slam the door when she walked. And we had an argument. Don't you love her as she's walking out the door?
Those are always the greatest. I mean, because people can relate to that, whether they realize it, why, they just do, you know. And,
yeah.
And, you know, everybody that had a relationship saw their wife, girlfriend doing that at some point in their life, you know.
Right, exactly, so they can relate.
Right. That's incredible. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, and then I did Touch Me. And Touch Me was actually, before it was Touch Me, it was Hit Me, Babe. It was I wrote it about playing blackjack. You know, where you go, hit me, hit me again. Can't you see I'm not afraid? Hit me, you know. But then Jim didn't like that because he thought people might take it literally and try to hit him.
I asked Felix Cavalieri a few weeks ago, I'll ask you the same question if you don't mind. What was it like for you to be on the Ed Sullivan Show?
It was kind of weird. It was, you know, that was the only national show you could do and play music on. I don't know if the Opry was out yet even, but as far as rock and roll, that was it. And, you know, it was kind of a corny show, really. It was, you know, they'd have, you know, comedians and animal acts and stuff like that. But, you know, we decided to do it. And they didn't want us to say, "Babe, you can't get much higher." So, you know, we thought they were kidding, you know. So we just did it the normal way. And I said, "You'll never play Ed Sullivan again."
I just thought that the set that they did with you guys on that Sullivan Show was incredible.
Yeah,
Didn't you like that?
That was kind of nice, Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one they did on the Smothers Brothers was better, I thought.
What was that?
It was like big spider webs and stuff. And no, it was fun being on Ed Sullivan. I mean, it's national TV. It's the big, New York, big theater. So, yeah, I'm sure it definitely helped us take off. You know, the Stones did it, and they asked them to say, instead of, they had to change their words to
Spend the night.
not spend the night, some time together.
Yeah.
And they did it. So, Doors, yay, Stones, boo.
So you had a lot of covers on Light My Fire. What was your favorite person that did a cover of your song?
Phew, that's a good one. Well, I have to say Jose Feliciano because, you know, he was the first one that covered it. And, you know, he did it totally different than us, but it still became a #1 hit and made his whole career just like it did ours. So that shows the strength of that song. You can do it, you know, totally different and it still works. And then after he did it, everybody started doing it. All the like big bands, you know, Tommy Dorsey and Buddy Rich, all those guys did it. And it became what's called a standard. And that means you make a lot of money.
Right.
Which we wouldn't have had Jose not done it. So at first I didn't like his version that much. I said, geez, he didn't even do the da-da-da-da-da-da part. And, you know, the essence of the song really is more the A minor to F sharp, that part. So, and he really played some nice stuff, nice guitar stuff in that.
Hey, we'll be right back in just 1 second.
Hey Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum Backstage fans, check out our new backstage gear. From t-shirts to coffee mugs, we've got you covered. Not yet a fan? Check out our YouTube channel and enjoy some intimate conversations with the world's best musicians. Dream Events and Catering is Nashville's leading full-service event and catering company. Grounded in exceptional customer service, creative expertise, and dreaming big, we imagine your next event as memorable, meaningful, and delicious. The Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum has been celebrating the men and women who make the music of our lives since 2006. The Musicians Hall of Fame is the one and only museum in the world that honors the musicians that played on the greatest recordings of all time.
It's a music city, huh? It's, I mean, where else are you going to get the cats, all the cats that are in this room?
From Hank to Hendrix, from LA to Nashville, the Musicians Hall of Fame will take you on a musical journey highlighting the talented musicians that created the soundtrack of our lives. Come see what you've heard, and while visiting, check out the interactive Grammy Museum Gallery at the Musicians Hall of Fame. Located in the heart of downtown Nashville in the first floor of the historic Nashville Municipal Auditorium. See you soon at the Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum.
Hey, welcome back to Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage with the great Robby Krieger.
1963, can you see that?
Did you use this on any Doors recordings?
Yeah, I use this on Spanish Caravan.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. Robbie, tell us about this.
It's 1954. I got it from a guy, this friend of mine named Rocky, for $400. And that was kind of a lot in those days, even
Yeah.
early '66. Because these, you know, the Black Beauties were not regarded as highly as the other, you know, Les Pauls. But I think they're great, you know. This is what I used for slide and most of all the Door stuff.
if you watch the Doors at the Hollywood Bowl, you'll see this guitar.
Right. And there's a video of us when we recorded Wild Child, and that has this one in it too. I like how yellow it got.
Oh, yeah, it's gorgeous. Yeah. Now, what's the story on the pickup here?
There was something wrong with the pickup when I got it, so I got this. What do you call it? Who's the guy that makes
Seymour?
Yeah, Seymour Duncan pickup.
So when did you add that to it?
It was back when I first got it, pretty much.
So that was the pickup that was on the records and concerts?
Yeah. Yep.
So now, is Gibson still making these?
Nah, they only made like 100 of them.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That'd be nice to have, too.
I know. I got another one.
Yeah. So I'm sure you don't
My
take
son
this one
has
out. do you?
No, I wouldn't take it out. But they really did a good job on those 100.
They do a good job on everything, I think.
Sure.
Um,
The new ones actually play better than this one. Feel that neck. It's kind of like a tree trunk.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah. So you were telling me about your SG. Now they've made a Bobby Krieger reissue SG, which I personally love that guitar they make. And I was at the custom shop when they were just coming out with it, and I just loved it. What was the story on your original one?
Well, like I say, the original one got stolen, and it was actually a melody maker. So it had the black half stack pickups. And then when that got stolen, I think I had a black Les Paul, a black SG with the 3 pickups, with the gold pickups.
Yeah.
And then I didn't really like that one much, so I got a red SG, like this one. It's actually that one. So it was pretty much like this. It was a 67, like this is. And this one here, my friend Marco found it in a hock shop about 30 years ago. He said, "Hey, you got to check this guitar out. It's just like your old one." And so I got it.
So this is one they copied?
No, yes. This is the, it's not the real one from back in the day, but it's a really 67, and I've had it for maybe 30 years.
Yeah.
But so now next year they're going to make this exact guitar again, going to do a model, and somewhere on it's going to be one of my paintings. So that'll be different. You want to see the model?
Yeah, let's look at that one if you don't mind.
Let's put them side by side so you can see. So the only difference really is the neck on this one is from a 61 Les Paul Jr., which my friend had one, and he let us use it to copy. But this next one that's coming out is going to have this neck, which I think I like better now, after using this one and this one, to, side by side. This is wider and flatter, which a lot of people like, and this one is a little more round.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for doing this, Robbie.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming, and hopefully I'll be back to Nashville, visit y'all.
Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week on Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage.